Started. Good morning. I'm Janice Baker. I'm the CAO for the Region of Peel, and this meeting is now open and being held pursuant to Section 219, Bracket 1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the lands on which we gather and on which the Region of Peel operates is part of the treaty lands and territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples inhabited and cared for this land. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe-Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. This is a public meeting to obtain input from the public on a proposed bylaw to change the composition of Regional Council as it relates to the appointment and term of office of the Regional Chair. The change in Regional Council's composition would be effective for the 2022 to 2026 term of Council. Please note that the name of persons providing oral or written submissions at this meeting will appear on the agenda and report of the public meeting of Regional Council. The agendas and report of the public meeting will appear on the Region of Peel website as a public record of all the proceedings. All postings are in compliance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. I will provide a brief overview of the proposed bylaw to change the composition of Regional Council as it relates to the appointment and term of office of the Regional Chair. Following this presentation, there will be an opportunity for people to make oral submissions on the matter. Staff will also accept any written submissions you may wish to submit through the regional.clerk@peelregion.ca email up until 4:30 p.m. on Monday, November 22nd, 2021. There will be no debate or discussion on the proposed bylaw or the public comments presented today at this meeting. No decision shall be made at this meeting. After a delegation has completed its presentation, members shall each have one opportunity to ask questions of the delegation for clarification purposes only and without debate. If the delegate's answer to the clarifying question requires a further clarifying question, a member shall have one further opportunity to clarify. Councillors will be able to discuss the proposed bylaw as well as any comments or concerns raised by the public here today when staff report back on this public meeting to Regional Council at its meeting that is being held on December 9th, 2021. Today is a public meeting to which Council has been invited, and it is the public's opportunity to be heard. This public meeting is being live streamed. In order to ensure that the meeting remains accessible to the public, a 15-minute recess will be called if the live stream is interrupted or fails. Staff will work to get the live stream up and running as soon as possible, and we will keep the Council advised. I call on the Regional Clerk to advise of requirements and the method by which notice of the meeting was given and confirm the dates that the notices were given.
Notice of the public meeting was given in accordance with Section 219(1) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended and Region of Peel Corporate Policy G00-16 by publication in the following news media having general circulation in the Region of Peel. Brampton Guardian, November 4th, 2021. Caledon Citizen, November 4th, 2021. Caledon Enterprise, November 4th, 2021. Mississauga News, November 4th, 2021. The notice of public meeting was posted on the Region's website as of November 4th, 2021, and the proposed bylaw was available to the public online as of November 12th, 2021. Those who are listening online who wish to speak are asked to please send an email to regional.clerk@peelregion.ca. If you are speaking on behalf of a special interest group, please identify the group prior to speaking.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will now provide a brief overview of the proposed bylaw excuse me, to change the composition of Regional Council as it relates to the appointment and term of office for the Regional Chair. The proposed bylaw establishes a certain set of terms that would apply to the office of Regional Chair in the event that the individual appointed as Chair is a Regional Councillor who is also a local municipal ward councillor. Under the existing framework, the Regional Chair is not a member of a local municipal council and is not entitled to hold any other elected office. Under the current regime, if the individual appointed as Regional Chair was an elected member of a local municipal council, that individual would be required to vacate their local municipal seat. Also, under the existing framework, the Regional Chair holds office for the entire term of council being 4 years, and the position of Vice Chair does not exist. Under the proposed bylaw, if the individual appointed as Chair is not a local municipal ward councillor member of Regional Council, then there would be no change to the current regime. In such circumstances, the Chair would not be entitled to also sit as a member of local municipal council, and the Chair would continue to hold office for the full 4-year term, and there would be no vice chairs. Again, the current regime would be unchanged. The bylaw proposes a change to the current regime only if the individual appointed as Chair by Council is a Regional councillor who is also a local municipal ward councillor. In such a case, the individual appointed as Chair would be required to continue to sit as and to fulfill the office of a member for the local lower tier municipal council ward to which they were elected, while also fulfilling the role of Regional Chair. The term of office of Chair for a Regional Councillor who is appointed as Chair under this alternative regime would be 2 years. And Council would also appoint 2 Regional Councillors to act as Vice Chairs. The Vice Chairs would be selected from members representing 2 different municipalities other than the municipality represented by the appointed Chair. Vice Chairs who are also local municipal ward councillors would continue to sit as members for the lower tier municipal ward to which they were elected and would be appointed for a 2-year term. The proposed bylaw does not limit eligibility for the position of Chair and does not prevent Regional Council from appointing a Chair who is not an elected member of Regional Council or a lower tier municipal ward councillor member of Regional Council. The bylaw only proposes a different set of terms that would apply to the office of Regional Chair if the individual appointed as Chair is a member of Regional Council who is also a local municipal ward councillor. At this point, we will open the meeting to oral submissions, and to date, we have 1 oral submission that has been received, and I will now call on our first delegate, our first delegate is Irene Ford. Ms. Ford, are you able to hear us, and are you able to speak?
Sorry, did you just call me in now? I didn't hear the first part there.
Yes, I did. Ms. Ford, this is your opportunity to make your delegation.
Thank you so much. I'm a Vaughan resident. I chose to speak today in support of the proposed bylaw after learning more about regional governance over the past year. I gave my first deputation in February 2021 to York Region Council. It was the second deputation I had ever given in my life. I was taken aback by the chair. I observed him to be controlling, pushed the item through, curtailed and shut down any opportunity for any members of council to speak or voice their concerns. The item was the GTA West Corridor, Highway 413. On March 18th, a regional special council meeting was called by the chair, and it was an unreasonable grouping of staff reports. It included the federal impact assessment requests for both the Bradford Bypass and Highway 413, as well as forecasted land needs and official plan policy updates for the ongoing municipal comprehensive review. Highway 413 got 3 hours of debate, the Bradford Bypass a few minutes, and the forecasted land needs not nearly enough time because the public was completely focused on the highways and did not understand the significance of the other reports, planning for the region, our communities for the next 30 years. This meeting made me wonder who decided and prioritized the agenda items, how much influence the chair had to structure and determine the agenda. Shortly after this, I realized the York Region Chair was not a publicly elected official, that it was a last-minute legislative change enacted by the current provincial government that directed the York, Peel, and Muskoka chairs to not be elected for the first time, but to return to the status quo of being appointed by elected council members. The same day, this government also announced changes to cut the City of Toronto's council by almost half. As far as I can tell, there has been no rhyme or reason to the province's involvement with municipal governments. While the province has had such a heavy hand with the City of Toronto, they have been lackadaisical about regional governance. The province conducted a regional government review, but did not release the report to the public, not even to municipalities who have asked. The recommendations of this report are considered confidential advice to Cabinet. It is unfortunate that Peel Region Council does not have any of the findings of this report before them today to help guide this decision. The author of the report remains disappointed that the government did not act on more of the report's recommendations, as do many members of the public like myself. The only contribution the province has made to regional governance that affects York Region is one that I view quite negatively and will result in the erosion of local democracy for Vaughan citizens. We will gain a fourth regional councillor next term without any regard for how this impacts Vaughan Council's local composition and decision-making process. Vaughan's mayor and regional councillors have made it abundantly clear that they maintain their regional position even when voting at local council. Vaughan has not had a new local councillor or ward added since 1970, yet we have gained 3 regional councillors. When I questioned how our new regional councillor would be elected by ward or at large and who has the authority to make the decision, I could not get an answer from the region or Vaughan. I had to go to the Ontario Ombudsman and wait 4 answers for an answer from Vaughan's clerk. The lower tier government has the authority to decide how local and regional councillors are elected, by ward or at large. Regardless of my efforts, the answer to my question eludes being discussed publicly in council chambers, where a decision could be made to address this imbalance. I bring this up because, in my view, regional governance is broken. It is the elephant in the room. In York Region, it is a pooling of funds and deference to the will of local councils. What purpose does this serve? After observing how the York Region Chair controls, shapes, and directs meetings, I've come to realize that the position of the Chair holds a tremendous amount of power with little to no accountability. York Region's unelected Chair is also the Chair of the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. The chair position should facilitate dialogue fairly to ensure that all views are given an opportunity to be heard. The chair's position is the interface between staff and council. It is a position that can stifle or allow council dialogue to flourish. In some ways, chairs are like the mayor of the region, except the public does not know who they are or what they do. It is unclear to me what interaction, if any, the public actually has with the chair. It would appear, based on the letter provided from the Mississauga Board of Trade, that the private sector does interact with the chair and values the position in its current form. For the very reasons they support the chair being appointed and not being an elected official, I believe are reasons to oppose the chair not being an elected position. The chair should have a commitment and obligation to represent the community, and the community should be able to hold the chair to account. The only means by which our democracy enables this at present is through a public election process. I do not know if the proposed bylaw before you today is the best solution, but I know it is better to have the option for a future council to decide rather than just keeping the status quo and doing nothing. It attempts to have representation from all of Peel's 3 municipalities. If it is problematic, it allows for a review after 2 years. In the absence of support or additional information from the province, it is the best option you have to attempt to increase the accountability of the position of the chair. Sadly, it is too late for York Region, as they have made their decision to maintain the status quo. Today, I hope that Peel Region will be more progressive and open to change that attempts to improve regional governance. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. I do have a couple of councillors on the board who wish to ask you a clarifying question. And the first councillor is Councillor Downey.
Thank you, through you, CEO Baker. Ms. Ford, I'm just wondering if you mentioned your first delegation earlier this year. Can you please elaborate on your involvement with the 413 campaign?
I just am a community member who's very concerned about the 413. We have a group that's, I guess, called Stop the 413. It's very much grassroots, and I've just been a very vocal advocate as a resident who's highly concerned about the highway and many of the impacts that have been in the media and the infrastructure dollars that are being used right now to invest in this highway that's taking away from existing communities. As far as I can tell, Brampton needs a new hospital way more than they need a new highway right now. So I'm very concerned about the province's priorities right now. And that's why I've been a very vocal advocate. And in that process, I've actually become extremely concerned about the role of the chair and who they represent, and that they're not publicly elected and they don't seem accountable to anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Jamerla.
Thank you, CEO, and good morning, Irene. I want to congratulate you first on being so well researched, and not everyone gives as much thought and interest to regional governments as you have, and so kudos to that. I have a question for you. I understand that you're disappointed with the way the regional chair in York Region has conducted affairs, but you have good and bad chairs, and that's not a reflection of the system necessarily, but sometimes the person. So you sort of have to ask yourself, are you against the current system because you had a bad experience, or is the system broken? And I would actually agree with you that to some extent the system's broken. But I won't get into that. The main question I want to ask you today is, the region of Peel has a budget of $2.7 billion. Do you think it makes sense to have oversight from a part-time chair? So the $2.7 billion is more than the budget of Mississauga, which is just under $1 billion and has a full-time mayor, is bigger than the city of Brampton, which has a budget of about $800,000 and has a full-time mayor. So would you support part-time mayors then? If you can run a $2.7 billion enterprise with the part-time chair, then perhaps the mayors should be part-time. I'm kind of curious to hear your response to that.
Thank you very much. I think my response actually would open a much larger can of worms for you. I think it would really be nice to know what the province found out during the regional review, but for some reason they do not want to share that information. I think that there is no rhyme or reason right now with regional governance. It is different in every single region. So Mississauga has one regional councillor and one local councillor that represents them. Vaughan has, our regional councillors are elected locally, but they vote on both local and regional councillors and councils. And so I think that you are right. I think it is a very large responsibility. I think they are huge budgets, and I think that's all the more reason that this council needs to consider changing the chair. My concern with the chair is more about how much influence they have to shape what comes on the agenda, what you discuss, who gets to speak in council chambers, and who does not get to speak in council chambers. And the chair's position should be unbiased and it should be impartial. And that is not what I have observed. And that is what my concern is. How that responsibility is distributed, I can't speak to that. I think that's more of an administrative role. My concern is more about good governance and accountability and transparency. And I do not see that happening right now at regional governance. And citizens do not understand the difference between lower tier and upper tier, who's responsible for what, and who answers, questions about that. And so, there's a lot of much bigger concerns that I don't think you can address today. But I think it behooves council to at least make some sort of change to acknowledge this and support the bylaw. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't support the bylaw. It is only allowing an option for change in the future. I'm not sure if that answered your question. I think it is really, really complicated, and I don't think a lot of politicians or the province want to open this up because it might lead to more change and more questions that are very difficult to answer.
And actually, you didn't answer the question, but that's okay. It is a complex issue, but I will submit to you.
Councillor Demirla, so you have a follow-up clarifying question. I just want to be fair, please.
Yeah. One of under the proposed change, a sitting councillor from one of the municipalities becomes the chair. So whereas two roles, one is as a councillor of, say, Brampton, and then as the chair of the region of Peel. And you raised the issue of impartiality, the chair being impartial. So if you're wearing two hats, one is you are beholden to the people who elect you in Brampton, and then you're a chair, how do you think someone can be impartial at that point? Because now
I don't think the current chairs are impartial themselves. They seem to have, if you read the letter from the Mississauga Board of Trade, they very much like it the way it is because they have access to the chair and they feel like the chair, is not really accountable to the public, in my humble opinion, because they're not elected. So the chair is, the chair as it is now, the only person the chair is accountable to is whoever is elected next term, who may or may not appoint the same chair or a different chair. And whether or not your chair is accountable to Brampton, to Mississauga, or Caledon, whichever municipality they might represent, I think that the bylaw is attempting to also have two vice chairs from the other two municipalities to help kind of balance that representation or those concerns. And I don't think you're ever going to find a perfect solution, but I really am not comfortable having an unelected chair who has such a tremendous amount of power to drive, to direct the agenda on billion-dollar and million-dollar questions. And, it is a really, really difficult question, and I appreciate that. And I don't think there's a perfect answer. But again, I don't think doing nothing, I think there's acknowledgement that there is an issue. That's why the bylaw is before you. So I don't think doing nothing and leaving it until next term is acceptable either. Thank you.
I now have Councillor Palleschi. You can go ahead and ask your clarifying question, Councillor Palleschi. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair / CAO. Thank you for your delegation, your interest in the Region of Peel. It seems that you did have a bad experience in your hometown. And some of the things that you had said about the regional chair deciding on who gets to speak and who doesn't, I haven't come across that here at the Region of Peel. I don't think our chair, prior chair, and current chair have ever picked or chosen who can speak and who can't. I think that if they had ever do that, members of council would be pretty upset with them. But that's where I wanted to ask the question. You had stated that the chair is since it's elected by the regional councillors and not the people. I represent 134,000 people, so I essentially am beheld to those residents, and then the chair to me. It's kind of like a stream down effect. So that's the way I kind of look at it. Is even though I have 134,000 bosses, I'm kind of the middle person towards the chair. Essentially, my vote cast for the regional chair is the person that I want to best represent the Region of Peel and the residents that I have. Can you kind of walk me through how you determine that our current chair isn't be held to anyone?
Sorry, can I just ask a clarifying question? I apologize, I'm not as familiar with Peel Council. Are you from Mississauga? Which municipality are you from?
I'm from Brampton.
You're from Brampton, okay. So to clarify, with regards to the chair, it has been observed, and I am not the only one to have observed this, is people who perhaps support a pro-developer agenda are often allowed to speak at length, and people who, the few council members that we have that might not be as supportive are often not, they don't appear to be allowed to speak at length in the same way, and they're often, maybe they're curtailed a little bit. It's very subtle. I admit that I might be more sensitive to it because I'm more supportive of these other councillors, but it was very apparent during that March 18th meeting, and I was not the only one who observed this. And then the other issue that I have is our regional councillors are, because they are elected at large, they're not really accountable to the community. They're like mini mayors, right? And most people don't understand what they do. So even though they're electing the chair and they're supposed to be representing our 350,000 constituents, they, it's our local councillors that get called and do the work and that are on the ground, that are doing the day-to-day stuff. And the chair is so far removed from that process, but has such a significant influence and impact on what happens and how our communities spend their money and how they grow, that I think it needs to be a little bit more accountable and there needs to be more transparency. I'm not sure how you get there, but I know it's certainly not working in my region. In the region of Peel, I know you've had some changes and it's very much a mixed bag. I don't really actually understand, to be honest, how Brampton's regional and local councillors work, because you have significantly more regional than local councillors. And again, it's a really bigger province. Like in Niagara, the regional councillors are elected directly to the region. They don't sit on the local tier councils. So there's not only conflicts for the chair, there's conflicts all the way up at the local council and at the regional council and for the chair as well. So again, I think it behooves you guys to do something rather than just ignoring this. And try and take some action today, because it has been recognized that change would be good. I think the other point that was a good one that has been brought up is kind of how much money is being spent and having to spend money on another by-election should a member from council, the current sitting council, be appointed as chair. I personally, I want a chair who has some commitment and buy-in to the community, and who I feel like local concerns are, there has to be a balance between local and regional concerns, and I don't see that happening right now. Our natural and our cultural heritage are being wiped out right now, and none of those concerns are making it up the chain. And it's not that things won't change or we won't develop or we won't grow. It's about how and where. And those local concerns I just really don't feel they're being heard.
No, thank you. And just final comment, Madam Chair / CAO. I think Niagara is a bad example, but politics in itself is complicated, and I wish I go to grade 5 schools. I go to schools and talk about politics.
Councillor Palleschi, I apologize. Do you have a follow-up question? We aren't allowing debate or discussion at the meeting.
There's no debate, Madam Chair. There's just some things that were said that I think politicians in general need to do a better job in educating the public about the roles and responsibility, and I think that's what I'm taking away from your delegation. Thank you so much for delegating. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Ford, for being here today. I have no other questioners, so thank you very much for your delegation. Is there any other person present who wishes to make an oral submission? I am seeing none, so thank you. To date, we have received 7 submissions for the proposed bylaw. Are there any additional written submissions to be presented at this time? I am being told there are none. Written submissions can be made at any time to Regional Clerk at regional.clerk@peelregion.ca up until 4:30 p.m. on Monday, November 22nd, 2021. Any written submissions that were received after the posting of the revised agenda up until 4:30 p.m. on Monday, November 22nd, 2021, will be appended to the report of the public meeting that will be considered at the December 9th, 2021 Regional Council meeting. I wish to thank all speakers for your interest and presentations during the meeting. The written comments, together with those oral submissions expressed at this meeting, have been noted. This brings to a conclusion the public meeting regarding the proposed bylaw to change the composition of Regional Council as it relates to the appointment and term of office of the Regional Chair. I hereby declare the public meeting. Oh, my apologies. Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, and I received an email from a constituent of mine and of Caledon, and she submitted some written comments for this meeting on Tuesday, and just wondering why that was not included in this agenda.
Those comments, I believe, Councillor Groves, as I've just noted, would be appended. They were received after the revised agenda was published, but they will be appended to the report coming out of the meeting, and they will be part of the report on December 9th. So they have been subsequently received, and they will be duly noted and duly recorded and form part of the public report out of this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 other hands. I'm not sure which one went up first. Councillor Palleschi and then Councillor Sado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just a question. We've had one delegation, not even from any of the 3 municipalities. My question, I guess, would be, where do we go from here? Do we want to try and get more word out to see if we can get more people to delegate to another public meeting, or do we feel that we got enough of the communication out to see if we can get people to come here today? I'm not sure. I've a public meeting that's only has one delegation, and the delegation not even being from the municipality is kind of like a missed opportunity, I find.
Councillor Palleschi, we are required to hold one statutory public meeting. This is the meeting. Notice was appropriately given, and I mean, it would be entirely up to council when they consider this matter, whether they wish to schedule additional public meetings. However, as we informed council, we will be bringing the report of this statutory public meeting back to council on December 9th, at which time the matter will be before council for debate, discussion, and decision.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sado.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question about the written submissions. I thought I heard you saying there were a number of written submissions. I only received one from MBOT in my revised agenda. So can I ask where the others are and why they were not sent out to members of council, or why they were not in the agenda itself?
My understanding from the clerk, and I can ask her to confirm if you wish, they were received after the agenda was published. Again, they will form part of the report that will come to Council on December 9th. So, Councillor Sadel, you will have an opportunity to see them before the December 9th meeting when this matter comes back to Council.
So could the clerk confirm, so every single written one was received after? I mean, usually when we have a council meeting, we are given note of what was received after the agenda and asked if we wish to have it on the agenda. They're usually, even things that are received after the agenda are shared by email to members of council. And I know this is different. It's not a council meeting, it's a public meeting, but I'm just a little surprised that wasn't done.
Thank you. I do confirm that each of the submissions, with the exception of the MBOT letter, was received after the revised agenda went out. And as this is a public meeting and not a council meeting, the additional communications were not sent out to council, but as has been noted by CAO Baker, they will be appended to the December 9th report, which will be circulated to council a week before the meeting, as well as being available to the public.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
I see no other raised hands or people wishing to speak. So with that, then, I hereby declare the public meeting officially closed. Thank you, everybody, for your time today.